The flashing lights appear in your rearview mirror. Your heart rate rises just a little. You slow down, pull over, and in that quiet moment before the officer reaches your window, a question lingers in the back of your mind. Not just about why you were stopped, but about what they already know about you. Because the truth is, in many situations before a single word is spoken, your background may already be checked. So let me ask you something. If a police officer ran your name right now, what would they see? And more importantly, do you really know how that information could be used in that moment? Take a second and think about it. And if you have ever been in a situation like this, share your experience in the comments. Because what we're about to uncover is something most people don't fully understand. Yet it can shape the outcome of an encounter in ways you might not expect. When people imagine a police interaction, they often picture a simple exchange. A question, an answer, maybe a warning or a ticket. But behind that seemingly ordinary interaction is a sophisticated system of data access, legal authority, and split-second decision-making that begins the moment an officer identifies you. In many countries, especially in places like the United States, the United Kingdom, and other developed legal systems, police officers have access to centralized databases. These systems are designed to provide quick, reliable information about individuals. Information that can include outstanding warrants, criminal history, driving records, and sometimes even flags related to safety concerns. The process often starts before you even realize it. If you're driving, for example, your license plate may be entered into a system or automatically scanned by what are known as automatic license plate readers. These tools can instantly check whether a vehicle is stolen, linked to a crime, or associated with an individual who has an outstanding warrant. By the time the officer approaches your vehicle, they may already have a preliminary understanding of who you are, and that changes everything. Because from a legal standpoint, background checks during police encounters are not random acts of curiosity. They are typically tied to specific powers granted under law. For example, during a lawful traffic stop, officers are generally allowed to verify the identity of the driver, check for valid licensing, and determine whether there are any active warrants. This is considered part of ensuring public safety. But here's where things become more complex and more interesting. The scope of what an officer can check and when they can check it depends heavily on the legal framework of the country or state you're in. In some jurisdictions, simply being stopped may justify a basic identity check. In others, there must be reasonable suspicion of wrongdoing before certain types of searches or database queries can be conducted. This distinction matters because it reflects a balance that legal systems attempt to maintain, a balance between law enforcement authority and individual rights. Think about that for a moment. How much access should authorities have to your personal history in everyday situations? Where should the line be drawn? These are not just abstract questions. Courts around the world have spent decades shaping the answers. In the United States, for instance, the Fourth Amendment protects individuals against unreasonable searches and seizures. Over time, courts have interpreted what reasonable means in different contexts. A routine traffic stop has been recognized as a situation where certain checks, like verifying a license or checking for warrants, are considered reasonable and lawful. However, the duration and scope of that stop cannot be extended indefinitely without additional justification. This principle was reinforced in multiple court decisions, emphasizing that an officer cannot prolong a stop beyond its original purpose without reasonable suspicion of further wrongdoing. Now imagine how this plays out in real life. An officer pulls someone over for speeding. While verifying the driver's license, they run a background check and discover an outstanding warrant. In that moment, the nature of the interaction shifts instantly, from a routine traffic violation to a lawful arrest situation. What began as a minor issue becomes something far more serious, and this is where many people misunderstand the situation. They assume that what they say or do during the interaction is the only factor that matters, but in reality, the information retrieved from a background check can be just as influential, sometimes even more so. Because once certain information is revealed, officers are legally obligated to act on it, but it's not just about warrants. Background checks can also reveal prior convictions, probation status, or conditions that may legally restrict certain behaviors. For example, if someone is on probation, there may be specific rules they are required to follow, such as restrictions on travel, association, or possession of certain items. If an officer becomes aware of these conditions during a check, it can directly influence how the situation is handled. Now here's something many people don't realize. Not all information in these systems is interpreted the same way. Context matters. A past conviction does not automatically mean someone is currently breaking the law. However, it may influence an officer's perception of risk, which can affect decisions related to safety precautions. This is part of what makes these interactions so complex, Because on one hand, the system is designed to provide useful information. On the other hand, human judgment plays a role in how that information is used, and human judgment is never perfectly neutral. So let me ask you another question. Do you think it's fair that past records can influence present interactions? Or should every encounter be treated as completely independent? There's no simple answer. And that's exactly why this topic continues to be debated in legal and social discussions around the world. Historically, the development of police databases marked a major shift in law enforcement capabilities. Decades ago, officers relied heavily on radio communication and manual records. Checks could take time, sometimes minutes, sometimes longer. Today, technology has changed that completely. Modern systems can deliver detailed information in seconds. This speed increases efficiency, but it also raises important questions about privacy, accuracy, and oversight. Because here's the reality. No system is perfect. Errors can occur, records can be outdated, information can be incomplete or misinterpreted, and when decisions are being made quickly, even small inaccuracies can have real consequences. This is why many legal systems include safeguards, mechanisms that allow individuals to challenge incorrect records or seek corrections. But in the moment of a police encounter, those safeguards don't always feel immediate. The officer is working with the information available at that time. And that brings us to another critical aspect of this topic, your rights during such encounters. Understanding your rights does not mean resisting authority or creating conflict. It means being aware of what is legally expected of you and what you are not obligated to do. In most legal systems, individuals are required to provide identification under certain circumstances, such as when driving or when lawfully detained. However, beyond basic identification, the extent of questioning and information sharing can vary. Remaining calm, respectful, and aware of your rights is often the most effective approach, because the goal in any interaction is clarity, not escalation. Let's consider a real-world scenario. A person is stopped late at night. The officer runs their name and finds no warrants, no criminal history, nothing unusual. The interaction remains brief, professional, and ends quickly. Now imagine a different scenario. The same stop, but the system flags an outstanding warrant from another jurisdiction. Suddenly, the officer must verify that information, possibly detain the individual, and follow legal procedures. Two completely different outcomes, based largely on what appeared during a background check. And this is why the question we started with is so important. What happens when police check your background? The answer is not just about data, it's about how that data interacts with law, human judgment, and real-world situations. It's about how information, accurate or flawed, can shape decisions in real time. And it's about understanding that these systems are not just tools for law enforcement, but part of a broader legal structure designed to balance safety and individual rights. As we come to the end of this discussion, take a moment to reflect. How much do you really know about what's on your record? Have you ever checked it yourself? Do you believe these systems are used fairly? Because awareness is the first step toward understanding, and understanding is what allows you to navigate these situations with confidence and clarity. If you found this topic thought-provoking, share your thoughts or experiences in the comments. Your perspective might help someone else see this issue in a new light. And the next time you see those flashing lights in your rearview mirror, you'll know something most people don't. The conversation may not have started yet, but the process already has.